Hello everyone, it's me, Nick, head of MaxMOCs, and today I am back with another MOC showcase, and thank you for all waiting patiently, because I know this video took way too long to come out. I was super busy this last month of school, but I'm out of school now, and I should have time to get back to my upload schedule. In front of me right now is a LEGO Battle Pod. So these are starting to become an alternative to the free mini poly bags you get with online LEGO purchases. And a lot of people like these battle pods, claiming they're a cheap, nifty way of buying minifigures with their accessories. But personally, I can't stand them. The Zane battle pod I'm showing right now came free with a Technic set that I bought a while ago. And while I was building this pod here, I really could not believe how much it did not feel like a Lego set. The closest thing there was to any real Lego-y items during the construction was putting some tiles on this surface right here. The pod itself is a single piece, so you don't even get to pop the two sides together. And worst of all, the pod really can't be turned into anything more interesting. There are no negative studs on it anywhere, except for some very faint outlines of a few at the bottom, but if you look, these have zero clutch power. There wasn't even any much point of putting there. And if you would like to sit a minifigure on this seat right here, that also won't work because there's not enough clearance for an entire minifigure in this way. The top, it won't close unless you blind them down or something. Because of these annoyances I have with the LEGO Battle Pod line, I decided to improve this pod the best way I could. By making it a transformer. Hashtag what has my life become. Okay, technically this guy isn't really a transformer, he's just a mech that can transform. This is supposed to be a robot from an alternate universe of Ninjago, where all 6 of the characters are mech pilots instead of ninja, and use mech suits that are deployed from battle pods to fight off other enemy mechs. So far, this is the only mech I've built, which would be piloted by Zane. But before I talk about the robot mode, I want to take a quick look at the transport pod mode. There really isn't much to say here. It's the original battle pod for Zane, it just holds a robot instead of a minifigure. This pod would be dropped from a space station or high-altitude plane, so the mech could quickly reach its destination. And with that out of the way, let's transform him. And that's about 50% of the transformation right there.
After the blackout, there was darkness in the streets. The only light for miles and miles shined artificially. It looks like death this time. No way to mask the lack of spine. Don't mess with Ninjago, 'cause we'll get you every time.
And here he is in his scouting mode. Now I know you might be thinking, this looks nothing like what was at the beginning of the video and in the thumbnail. And yes, you are right. This mode is one of 3 the mech has. This scouting mode is the least armored and is intended for the mech on scouting and surveillance missions. As for the MOC itself, the building techniques and design of this mode are decent. I will admit there isn't much greebling on this mode because the mech's body really doesn't get wide enough to support any. The closest this MOC has to any greebling are the details on the thighs, this simulated panel on the chest, and these tiles on the feet that are supposed to represent sprockets. Overall, the Scout mode isn't really much to look at, but what it doesn't make up for in looks, it makes up for in posability. The head is on a clip, so it can look up and down. It can also swivel. There's a ball joint at each shoulder, which allows for some in and a lot of out, and a rotation. There's another ball joint back here, so the arm can move even further out. Bend at the elbow. The wrists do absolutely nothing. There's a ratchety bend at his waist that is mostly for transformation, but it can also serve as an ab crunch. The legs move in and out and forward and backwards. He is capable of a disturbingly good spread. The knees are on ball joints, which allows them to go backwards, as well as swivel and pivot. But I find knee pivots kinda weird. And a ball joint at the ankle, which allows it to go forward, backwards, swivel, and pivot. Posability on this guy is amazing, and I'm happy to say the MOC is also very sturdy, so there's no chance of any parts breaking off when you try to pose it. I'm looking at you, M-Tronite. And why have such a posable figure if you don't have a weapon to pose him with? That's right, this mech comes with an ice bow. This bow would suck in air around it, and then super chill it into an ice arrow, which could then be launched by the mech. The bow just clips into the mech's hand like so. And if you want to make it look like it's firing, you can insert an ammo piece for a spring shooter in this 1x1 round piece right here. To store the bow, you just fold it up and clip it to the mech's thigh. And if you want, you can put the swords the bow's limbs are made with into the mech's hands, and he can be wielding some form of blade, considering these are too small for him to be swords. This mode is pretty cool, but remember, this MOC has free modes. And before we can get to the next mode, I have to introduce a vehicle this comes with. This is the Ground Patrol Drone, aka the lightweight weapons carrying unit, which the bow can also clip onto. This is a tracked vehicle that would be used to make sure everything was okay in the areas that mechs would be deployed in. And if something wasn't, they could radio for a mech to be deployed. This vehicle has a patrol mode, which it is in now, and a defense mode. Because the mech is supposed to be used for defense in Arctic regions, I tried to make the vehicle look like it could accompany the mech well, and it was well suited for patrolling an Arctic area. So I gave it big treads, which are actually tire pieces stretched around 1x1 round plates. Big floodlights up front, I really like those. It can take a little water if it needs to, and even though it's a drone and can drive itself, it has a little place up here that some people can sit in. But as I mentioned earlier, this vehicle is also referred to as a light weapons carrying unit, and that is because the vehicle structure is modular, so it can combine with the mech. And here's the mech in its defense mode. This mode would be used by the mech if a smaller ambush were to happen, and it would need to defend an area or a town, hence the name. The building techniques and design of this mode are really cool. All of the armor that fits around the mech complements the original Scout mode design very nicely, and none of the armor really limits posability. As a matter of fact, the shin armor actually improves the knees a little bit, as they are no longer able to bend completely forward like they do in Scout mode. I dig the giant spotlights on the mech's shoulders, but I should bring up, these panels do have a tendency to pop off when you try to turn the mech's shoulders or bend its elbows. However, this doesn't bother me much because they pop back right on again and they're not holding any major parts of the robot in place. I'm looking at you again, Emtronite. Now let's move to the attention of this helmet, and boy, I love this helmet. I was annoyed that I could only make a Cyclops head on the mech Scout mode, but the helmet makes up for that entirely. Actually, this item being called a helmet is a bit of a loose term, because the armor item that fits around the head module is supposed to completely reconfigure that area. With the helmet off, the mecha pilot, in this case Zane, would sit down here behind the mouthpiece, or what is now the mouthpiece. With the helmet on, a hatch would open, and Zane would be elevated up to here. Speaking of mouth plates, I like the way the head looks with a glass mouth plate. But if you consider how that would technically be unsafe for the person sitting in there, you can change the mouthpiece. He has this white one, which I think looks nice with a transparent ring beneath the eye visor. But I more prefer this transparent blue one, which looks like there's a heads-up display set up inside the mech's cockpit. If you want to, you can attach one of the mech's faces to the back of its head, but this limits the head's posability so much you might as well just not. Also, there's still one face you have nothing to do with. The mech's weapon can also upgrade. By snapping the mech's bow to the central support of the ground patrol vehicle, you can now give the mech a crossbow. And he looks good with it. With this mode's weaponry and design, it's hard to see how this mech could get any better, but there's still another vehicle that I built this guy with. This is the Sky Patrol drone, aka the Heavy Weapons Carrying Unit. This massive unmanned aircraft is designed to patrol the air and take out any threats not worthy of a mech assault, and it is pretty cool looking in my opinion. And it also has a bit of posability. There's a hinge joint at the wing, a little thing that can move here. There's a ball joint at each rocket launcher. Air brakes open at each rocket launcher. And there's also a thruster back here that's on a hinge joint. And this section right here is on 2 hinge joints, but that's more for transformation. Because, as it turns out, this guy is also modular. And on the subject of can this mech get any better?
I could finally see. I knew the day would come when I would defend my home city. It looks like now's the time that we should stand up for the fight. This blackout's over and I'm ready for the light. The lights came on, brighter than ever before. Can you see the shine? Go ninja, go ninja. Won't let them fade. This city's meant for much more. Gotta hear a shout. Go ninja, go ninja.
And here the mech is in its assault mode. This mode looks awesome. And speaking of which, the building techniques and design of this mode are awesome. These shoulder-mounted rocket launchers and chest plate make this mode look really powerful and battle-ready, and this is completely the look I wanted the mech to have. This mode would be used by the mech when it's battling level 10 threats and needs all the firepower it has. In this mode, the mech has all of its armor, several weapons, plus a shield. And this shield is a lot more than just a shield, because aside from blocking weapons, it can release a discharge of elemental energy through its center point. It can also launch its shurikens. And you can hold the shurikens by themselves too. There really isn't much else to say about this mode, other than it looks amazing, none of the armor limits the posability at all, and the mech is still able to stand perfectly well as long as it's balanced. However, before I move on, I want to quickly bring up that this mech took a lot of inspiration from the Frame Arms mech Type 32 and the RX-0 Unicorn Gundam, and I'm sure any Japanese robot enthusiasts out there have already figured that out, but I just wanted to let my other viewers who might not be so sure know. Also, by before I move on, I mean, this guy has one more mode.
Ready for the lights came on, brighter than ever before. Can you see them shine? Go ninja, go ninja. Won't let them fade. This city's meant for much more. Gotta hear a shout. Go ninja, go ninja.
And here the mech is in his super shield mode. The reason I only referred to this mech as having free modes was because this is more of a sub mode than an actual mode. This is a mode that the mech will go into if he is exposed to a large energy blast. The mech's pod, which is in low orbit at the time, will be summoned and connect to the mech's main shield. He can duck behind the shield, as well as launch missiles from it. And now that all of the MOC's different modes have been showcased, I think it's safe to say, this MOC is awesome. For the longest time now, I've been trying to reach a good mix of playability and displayability on an action figure style MOC, and with this MOC, I believe I've finally reached it. This guy is very well detailed and looks good on a shelf, but he's also sturdy, solid, posable, and can be played with without a joint falling off or breaking. If any, my only complaint is these shoulder pads, which pop off way more easily than I like them to. This MOC came out perfectly, and I would like to make more of these, but unfortunately I have other things on my agenda, and I might require some pieces that this guy has in him right now. Thank you very much for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. I know this video took way too long to come out, so I hate to say this, but you might have to wait a little while for my showcase on my next MOC, because at the moment that's all I have of it. But don't worry, I'm sure I'll think of something for next week.